If my eyes turn away just because I've had enough for one day, then this tired old world, this crazy time is having its way. If my life on from here is a life lived and driven by fear, then this tired old world, this crazy time is having its way. If I ever get to a time when it don't bother me to bury my friends or watch somebody die on the street, if I don't feel much more than disgust or a shrug or oh well, then I've lost my compassion and mercy as well as myself. If my heart fails to break at the sight of unbearable pain, then this tired old world, this crazy time is having its way.
Ozzie Myers, and I welcome you today. We come together each Sunday in love and service. In the words of James Blake, this is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another in such a cold day. I added that. We acknowledge that we gather on the traditional sacred lands of Anishinaabe and Dakota peoples. In honor of their stewardship throughout the generations, we commit ourselves to protecting that land and working to mitigate the effects of climate change. A few announcements. We need to correct an announcement made last week. We do not need anyone to sign up to provide soup and bread on February the 1st because we will instead have pizza and ethics, courtesy of the Social Justice Committee.
No, that's not right. It's soup and ethics. We do need soup and ethics.
Oh, soup and ethics. Well, the message that got sent to me was pizza. Okay, soup and ethics. And we do need people to sign up for soup. So there must be a page up there. Okay. And today, we appreciated people whose names begin with E, F, and G could help us clean up. We also need volunteers as greeters, and to get some training, please talk to Judith Semino, who will be back next week. Friends, musical and spoken word offerings are being sought for on February the 8th, Sunday service. Our theme is love as represented in our UU values: justice, equity, transformation, generosity, pluralism, and sprinkled with romantic love, independence. Please consider sharing with us at this service. Dust off that sheet music, violin, or favorite poem, and let sharing Carter know of your interest to schedule. Okay, I think that's it.
Good morning. My name is Mary Ness. I'm on the program committee. And up until 4 p.m. yesterday, we were planning on Dallas Rising to come here and speak to us about the MUUSJA organization that she works for. MUUSJA stands for Minnesota Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Alliance. They do a lot of work for justice, and she's very involved with it. But with all the unrest and the killing of Alex Pretti yesterday in Minneapolis, she felt a need to stay in Minneapolis and continue the work of justice there. So, our program committee, with the support of Jane Ellison and Reverend Lund, have created a new program. So right now, we'll be hearing quite soon from Reverend Lund and the rest of our musicians, and hopefully you will have some excellent interaction during this program today. Right now, we will light the chalice, and Helen is going to light the chalice for us. Please read the words on your laminated order of service. May the flame in this chalice kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the glow of love, the fire of commitment, and the light of truth. Thank you, Helen. We'll begin with a piece of music. It's called Breathe by Peter Mayer.
Now that you're all settled nicely in your seats in this nice warm space, we're actually going to ask you to stand up and do this meditative movement song with us. Obviously, stand as you are able, and if you choose not to, that's fine. But we thought that it was, with everything that's been going on, and for many of us, we've been watching news reports and being overwhelmed, we also need to breathe. We need to breathe. We need to take care of ourselves in the midst of doing the justice work that we need to do. So this is a song by Peter Mayer. It's called Breathe In. Carol is going to show you all the incredibly complex movements you need to make. They are not incredibly complex. They are incredibly simple. We'll just quietly and simply walk through this meditative movement. We're starting with hands open to the day. And Carol will put her hands out, open to the day. That's what we're starting with. Hands open to the day. Breathe in. Breathe out. Hands joined as if to pray. Breathe in. Breathe out. Arms reaching to the sky. Then circling around down to the earth. Eyes lifted to the light, to the light. Hands, branches catching rain. Breathe in, breathe out. Then rising like a stalk of grain. Breathe in, breathe out. Arms reaching to the sky. Then circling around down to the earth. Eyes lifted to the light, to the light. Hands open to the day. Breathe in, breathe out. Hands joined as if to pray. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jean. Joys and sorrows is a UU tradition shared in many congregations. It's a time for members of this community to share their deepest personal joys and sorrows. This morning, I will read the joys and sorrows that were submitted before the service. And do we have some children who would like to light candles? Okay. Okay, we're gonna round up some children so that they can light some candles for us. I'll wait a couple minutes, or just a little bit. This joy is from Judy Foster. She says, "We are going to see our granddaughter play hockey tonight," which is always a joy. And this joy is from Judy Elliott. "My kids gleefully informed me it snowed in Winston-Salem, North Carolina." As I said earlier, we were expecting Dallas Rising to be here to talk about MUUSJA, Minnesota Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Alliance. We've been active, our congregation has been active with MUUSJA for many years. Our longstanding member, Judy, has been on the board. If you want to know more about MUUSJA, you can talk to me. I'm involved with it, as well as Judy, if that's okay, Judy. I didn't talk to you about that ahead of time. But as I said, Dallas isn't going to be here today. She is caring for her own safety in Minneapolis and continuing the work of social justice and showing up for everyone in Minneapolis who is experiencing great trauma right now. We are going to invite Reverend Lund to come up to the podium. He's going to begin by sharing some of his thoughts. We'll have an opportunity to interact with each other, and there will be some music. Welcome, Reverend Lund.
Thank you. I'd like to begin with a moment of silence for all the people who've been killed by ICE since January of 2025, and most recently Alex Pretti in Minneapolis yesterday morning. So if we could all just settle in and let's have a moment of silence to remember Alex and Renee and all the others who have been killed by ICE. Thank you. I usually try to throw a little humor into sermons, so I'm going to just throw one little thing in now, and then we'll just be a little more serious. But I like to say that my generic title for giving a sermon is "Don't Get Me Started." And this is a subject to not get me started about, because I could go on for quite a while, but I'll try to rein it in a bit. I'd like to start by saying, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that we are at a critical moment in the history of our country. We are at the point where an authoritarian regime is looking for a place to break through. And by break through, I mean there's two choices here. Either the authoritarian regime gains power and becomes more extreme. And to be honest, when I'm talking about more extreme, the historic parallel is to the Nazi Party in Germany in the 30s and the 40s. The other alternative is they back down, okay? The news isn't incredibly good here. If they back down, they become just a run-of-the-mill authoritarian regime. And we're talking like Orban in Hungary. You know, things will still be hard, but they will not be extreme. That's where we are. I said that at the beginning of the month, and little did I know that by the end of the month, we would be at that point, and we are. So this is the moment, and Minnesota is the place. And nobody here asked to be in that position, but this is where we are. And there is some good news. When I first mentioned this at the beginning of the month, I talked about how there had been some judicial action to have, I'll just keep calling it the regime, back off. There were rulings that they could not bring National Guard from another state into Chicago or into Oregon. So they thwarted that plan. And I talked about the legislators in my home state, in Indiana, did not vote to redistrict. They stood up for democracy. They didn't cave in to the threats of being primaried or losing funding if they didn't go along with it. So there was good news there. We saw a lot of good news, though, last week, especially on Friday. And I'll say that's what I was doing all last week. Several groups in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, got together to plan several actions and to give those actions some moral weight. They asked clergy from all over the country to come to Minneapolis. And they did. They came. And so on Friday, we saw two things happen that caught people's attention. A lot of people went down to the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport to protest, and little did they know that they had 100 clergy people wearing their stoles planning to be arrested, and they did. At one point, they stepped out and they blocked the departures entrance, and the Bloomington Police Department was there, and they zip-tied the clergy and led them away. And that made an impact. Because the second thing that happened is there was that march on Friday. And I'm proud to have been there with my wife and my friend from Oregon, Washington, Oregon. No, not Washington, Vancouver, Oregon. She flew in. No, okay, excuse me, I gotta straighten this out. Vancouver, Washington, near Oregon, she flew in to be with us. She stayed overnight and we all went to the march. And, you know, we've been to marches in the past and it felt like the right thing to do. But by golly, weren't there over 20,000 people there. And it was amazing. It was huge. It was huge. And that was a statement. And so I want to say that the clergy thing got through to people because when we were done with the march, we got on the train, and I don't know if you've ever tried to take public transportation after a major march like that, but the trains don't leave for a while because people are still marching in front of the trains. They can't get through. And so we were sitting on the train for a while. We all kind of got to know each other. And there were some people behind us talking. And they were going, they arrested clergy. How can they arrest clergy? So it caught their attention. And that was the plan. Okay? So that worked. That worked. And I saw a little video, because of course, I don't know if you've been doing this, but I've been looking for any sort of videos to give me some sense of what's really happening. I saw a video. It was a rally at the Boston Common, home of Unitarian Universalism. And they were saying something like, what was it? Something along the lines of, "We're not afraid, Minnesota taught us to be brave." So, I like to say, they picked the wrong state, right? Because this is my adopted state, but I was just counting up on, in my mind, it's a third of my life I've spent here, so I think that's long enough. It's kind of, maybe not quite long enough to break into Minnesotan culture, but I feel like I'm getting there. But no, I'm very proud of Minnesota, and I do think they've picked the wrong state. So I wanted to start by saying that. And then, as we know, it wasn't more than 24 hours after that march before ICE killed another U.S. citizen. And actually, it wasn't ICE. It was Customs and Border Patrol agents who were shooting. And I just want to say, if this happened any other time in our history, if you read that a U.S. citizen was killed by Customs Border Patrol people, how far are we from the border? 300 more miles? If we read that two Customs Border people shot a U.S. citizen, that would be huge news, and there'd be all sorts of investigations. But what do we have? We have lies already being told about Alex Pretti. I'm assuming the fact that he was a nurse and unmarried at 37, he doesn't fit, Charlie Kirk's idea of what a man should be doing, right? He should have more children than he can afford by that time in his life. And so they've already tried to smear Renee Good. They're going to try to smear Alex Pretti. And so this is the moment. This is the moment when we have to show up. And I have a song about showing up that I want to teach you. And maybe we'll sing it a few times as I stand up here. By the way, this is all extemporaneous, and that's nothing like I ever wanted to do as a preacher ever in my life. But as I said, don't get me started. So the song is, I think his name is Reverend Seco, and it's called What a Time to Be Alive. And the words are, what a time to be alive, what a time to be alive, the revolution has come. What a time to be alive, what a time to be alive. When we show up, we've already won. Now he says when we stand up, we've already won, and that's just in general terms for me, that's a little ableist, but actually I think show up is better for many reasons, because that's all we need to do is show up. And I'm going to talk about different ways we can show up. But first, I'll teach you this song. What a time to be alive, what a time to be alive. The revolution has come. What a time to be alive, what a time to be alive. When we show up, we've already won. So I'll sing a line, you sing it back to me. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. The revolution has come. The revolution has come. What a time to be alive. 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 When we show up, we've already won. When we show up, we've already won. Okay, let's sing it all together. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. The revolution has come. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. When we show up, we've already won. What a time to be alive, what a time to be alive. The revolution has come. What a time to be alive, what a time to be alive. When we show up, we've already won. And I don't know if revolution's too strong of a word or not, but I think if we don't do something, we're going to need a real revolution at some point. So let's do this now. Let's show up and make the regime back down, okay? And I want to give you some thoughts about how we can do that first. I'm going to give you some ideas about where we might be able to show up. But before I do that, I just want to clarify what is happening in Minnesota. We've been invaded by what some people are calling law enforcement, federal law enforcement, but as we know, some of these people are barely trained. Some of these people may have been at the January 6th riot. Some of these people might be Proud Boys. They might be, 3%ers, 1%ers, Oath Keepers. Who knows who these people are? I'm sure they weren't vetted very well by the Department of Homeland Security. In fact, the advertisements they're putting out for these people are, they're not even dog whistles. They're just like, hey, we want you. I saw a video where I believe it was some of the DHS people lined up in front of the Whipple building in Minneapolis with their headquarters, and there's some guys there, and one of them said, it's just like Call of Duty, isn't it? It's like, for some of these people, it's a game, right? They've given them a gun. And I guess now that we reach that point, I should say, how we show up is always with nonviolence, and I have a video to show you in a moment, not quite yet, but in a moment, just reiterating that whatever we do needs to be a nonviolent movement. Okay. So here's what I learned last week. This clergy action that we did was it was several days of training that we went through, and it was very, very encouraging, and we learned a lot about how people in Minnesota are protecting each other with they call it hyper-local, action, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But this is what I learned. Minneapolis has maybe over 100,000 undocumented people, maybe over 100,000. Florida has millions. Texas has millions. If it was really about, getting the worst of the worst, they could find a lot more of them in Florida and Texas. But they're in Minnesota. And they're in Minnesota because Minnesota just has a long history of being progressive. And some of the ways that's demonstrated is legislation and policies. Things to make life fair and equitable for our neighbors. It shows up by the nonprofits we have in Minnesota to help people, so many of them. And it shows up by the religious institutions. A lot of the clergy that were there this week were local clergy at the beginning. We met on Monday, the local clergy, before the other folks came in. And once again, we filled a sanctuary, 10 times the size. So they're here because this might have looked like an easy target for them, a smaller blue state, right? But I think they're ignoring the fact of who Minnesotans really are, which is why I love that the march occurred in sub-zero temperatures. And, of course, nobody complained. In fact, if there was anything to say about the weather, would be, is it cold enough for you yet? Right? So we're being targeted, and it is an invasion. And I'm not going to be shy about saying things like this from now on. It's an invasion from the federal government. And it was certainly unconstitutional, but since our government is kind of rickety at the moment, I don't know what else to call it, nobody there is acting, right? Although there is an opportunity to act. Let's just say the opposition party is looking to shut down the government in order to keep funding away from ICE. And we should be supporting that. And if you care to write a congressional representative just to let them know that you think the government should be shut down, feel free to do that. Although I will say, they think they're putting together a database of domestic terrorists. And, who knows what they're going to count as being an act of domestic terrorism. It could be writing your congressman. Who knows? So there are things coming up by the end of the month. Really, by the end of the month, I really do think we're going to have a sense which way we're going here. Does anybody agree with me? I'm seeing some nods. I mean, we are at that point, right? This isn't going to happen 6 months from now. It's going to happen this month. We are that close, okay? And as I said, the good news is we just have to show up, and I will share with you more about that. But did anybody here remember what else I said I was going to share about? Because I'm just kind of rambling. I said I was going to bring something else up here. No? Okay. All right. What's that? Yes, thank you. In fact, why don't I do that right now, Austin? I am so thrilled by this. It was on. I'll let you know exactly when to start it. It was on Threads, which is one tech baron's version of social media, as opposed to another tech baron's version of social media. But it was on Threads. It's from Bernice King, the daughter of Martin Luther King. And apparently she was so moved by what Minnesota did on Friday that she has a message for us. So Austin, can we show it? You have to turn up the volume there. Okay.
To my brothers and sisters in the freedom and justice struggle in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota, my father, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., reminds us that human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Even a superficial look at history reveals that no social advance rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. He went on to say that every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. Without persistent effort, time itself becomes an ally of the insurgent and primitive forces of irrational emotionalism and social destruction. And he ended by saying, this is no time for apathy or complacency. This is the time for vigorous and positive action. Minnesota, hear this not as a quote from history, but as a sacred moral call. My father wrote these words to remind us that justice does not stroll in casually. It must be carried in by courageous people who refuse to let fear have the final word. And that is what you are doing. You're standing in the cold with conviction that cannot be chilled. You are lifting your voices with truth that cannot be detained. You're declaring that the children of God who call Minnesota home, immigrants, refugees, families seeking safety, will not be abandoned to the machinery of cruelty. You are saying to ICE, to the state, to the nation, we will not surrender our humanity. We will not sacrifice our neighbors. We will not let oppression operate unchallenged on this soil. Your presence is not just protest. It is prophetic pressure, the kind that makes systems tremble and makes conscience rise. And let me speak this with the spiritual weight my mother and father taught me to carry. What you are doing is holy work. This is nonviolence in its highest form, courage without cruelty, power without hatred, resistance without revenge. This is the vigorous and positive action my father envisioned. Action that refuses to bow to brutality. Action that refuses to mirror the malice it confronts. Action that insists that love is not weak and justice is not optional. Minnesota, my brothers and sisters, you are stepping into your moral identity. You are showing this nation what it looks like when a people decide that fear will not rule them, cruelty will not define them, and silence will not protect them. So stand firm, my brothers and sisters. Stand faithful. This is the season for vigilant nonviolence, for unyielding love, for righteous resistance that remains steady until ICE is no longer a shadow over your streets or a threat to your families. You are bending the arc with spirit-filled strength, and the world is watching the light you refuse to let go out. So walk together, children. Don't you dare get weary. Struggle together, children. Don't you get weary. Stand up and protest nonviolently together, children. And do not get weary.
Yeah. So I think this, to me, just shows you where we are. We are being noticed, and I think people understand what the stakes are here. I was heartened to see that when I first saw it. And it was just a little threads thing on my phone, and I managed to embiggen it for you so you could all see it. And thank you, Austin, for sharing the message. Okay, so I'm going to just wrap up a little bit here by giving you some ideas about how to show up. Some, I think, relatively simple things to do, and I will also tell you about what we're hoping to do right now. But a lot of what's going on in Minneapolis and St. Paul and other places too is neighbors coming out to help neighbors, okay? And so A.N. Omar, the Director of Equity Services at St. Cloud Area School District 742, that's a big name, is asking for volunteers to act as bus greeters, to serve as a safe and supportive bridge for students and families to and from the bus. Aaron asks that if you have a few hours a week and want to stand with families in support of safety and family unity, to sign up for that. And I have the link for you all to sign up for that if you want to. So it's a few hours. And I'll just say my wife and I have been doing this at the Hubs Center in St. Paul. It's a St. Paul public school program for adults, right, and for immigrants, and most of them are coming, you know, to learn English and things like that. And we signed up to just be there once a week in the morning from like, 8:30 to 9:15, not a big deal. And we have vests on, and we're just greeting people, and they are very happy to see us. And one of the people who was out there the day after we were did see an ICE vehicle in their parking lot, and they went over there and very kindly chased them away. You know, so there's little things like that. So here's an opportunity for you to support our neighbors by being there when the children get on and off the buses. Next, I hope this is still happening, next Saturday night at 7 p.m., Are we having a pro-democracy sing-along here? I'm looking at you, Jane. Steve, I'm looking at you. Yeah, okay. Was it just last week, Steve, you did the concert? Okay. But we were here at 7 o'clock, and Steve did a house concert for us. And we think that 7 p.m. on a Friday, at least for now, or Saturday, might be a good time to do this. So the musicians are going to gather, and we're going to sing pro-democracy songs, old and new. And when I say pro-democracy, I mean anti-fascist, okay? So there will be some good old anti-fascist songs in there. One of my favorites is Woody Guthrie's All You Fascists Gonna Lose. So we're gonna sing that one, okay? And then the third thing is next Sunday at 3:30 at South Junior High, there's going to be a multi-faith vigil, praying for our community, seeking unity with our siblings in faith. They're asking for donations of canned goods and hygiene products as well. So that's next Sunday at 3:30. We'll mention this again at the service next week. But I would love to see as many of us there as well, because that is getting the support of our siblings in faith, as they say, right? And I think I've mentioned before, when I look at religion in the United States, I see it going in two ways. Either you believe, love your neighbor, or you don't, okay? And Unitarian Universalism is definitely in the love your neighbor category, okay? And that's who's going to be there, all right? So that's a chance for us to get some support.
What school was that?
It's going to be at South Junior High. Judy will get a notice of that did we get it in this week's newsletter? But next e-blast, we'll get that in there for you. So you'll have that. And we'll tell you about it again next week at the service. Richard.
I'm wondering if you could get your coalition of ministers. Are they still in jail or have they been released yet?
Okay, thank you for asking. Richard's asking, what about those ministers who were arrested? This is something I found out. Organizers who plan things like this are often on good terms with some of the police, and when something is about to happen, they call them up and say, we've got a bunch of nonviolent clergy here, and they're going to call you and ask you to come and arrest them. So if you can be as kind and gentle as possible, because they know who they're talking to, which police, and that's what happened. It was they had buses. They put on, I think you might have saw it in the video, they put on the zip ties, they put them on buses, and then I think they let them all go. So
what I was going to suggest, if you could get with your coalition of ministers, go to the governor and talk to the governor. The governor has power.
yeah,
The governor could use the National Guard to protect the citizens of Minneapolis,
okay,
St. Paul,
yeah,
from ICE,
yeah,
from murdering people.
yeah. Thank you, Rich. Yeah,
He would listen to the ministers.
Yeah.
All these ministers.
that's right.
Right now he's doing nothing.
Yeah, okay, Rich. Yeah,
He did when George Floyd was murdered.
yeah,
He did nothing when they destroyed South St.
okay.
Minneapolis.
All right.
Maybe you could get him to bring in the National Guard and make that National Guard a barrier to make
Yeah.
things back up a little
Yeah,
bit.
something like that might happen. Richard's suggesting that we get the clergy to go talk to the governor and ask the governor to have the National Guard protect the citizens here in Minnesota, and that might happen, and that's good. No, it's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable. And, we do, clergy don't have quite the impact that they used to have, but they still have some impact. So we put on our little outfits, and people notice us. So thank you, Richard. Thank you for that suggestion. Let's sing that song again. And then I'm going to ask Charlotte to come up. You have a reading for us, right, Charlotte? So Charlotte's going to come up and share a reading, and then we're going to have some more music, I believe. Yeah. And yes. Oh, right. Thank you. That was, I'm sorry. Since I'm doing this extemporaneously, I didn't write that down. Yes. Americans for Democracy, I believe, is a group. Every Saturday they have been protesting at 11 o'clock in front of the Barnes & Noble on Division Street, isn't it? And yesterday, I was going to say that was yesterday, it moved to the library. Same time, but to the public library. So it may keep meeting there. Thank you. That is another place to show up. And that makes a difference. The more often we're showing up, the more people, that is making a difference. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, go ahead.
Is there anybody that has a connection with any kind of local media that isn't
Yes.
or by the corporate things? One of the things that just grates me is every time I hear them refer to them as federal law enforcement.
Yes.
Because they are not.
Right. No, they
They
aren't. Yeah.
They're not entitled to that.
They don't have, yeah.
We need to quit calling.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, I think we do have some people who can get in touch with the media, but the idea is to ask the media to quit referring to them as federal law enforcement, because they're not law enforcement. They have very, ICE and the Border Patrol have very, constricted sort of rights of what they can do, and they are pushing it right now, and they are being called law enforcement. And I tell you, if I were a run-of-the-mill cop, I would be embarrassed that these people are called law enforcement, So thank you for reminding us. Yes?
There are also quite a lot of food drop-off places.
Oh, yes, quite a few food drop-off spaces. Actually, when we were having this conversation this morning, we were putting the service together. One of the things I would say we're committed to doing is reaching out to our neighbors, our immediate neighbors here, and finding what their needs are, and finding a way for all of us to get involved to help our neighbors, because that's what it's all about right now, too.
The two organizations that are doing the food drive, one is MUUSJA, and they're trying to help like Latinx families in the area that are afraid to leave their homes and go shopping, or their restaurants are closing down. And then the one for the Somali families that's doing the halal food drive is called
Oh.
so there's two different ones
Okay.
going on in the community.
Yeah.
So MUUSJA and Bahan.
Okay, so two different ones. One is primarily for Hispanic neighbors, and another for Somali neighbors who have halal, diets. So yeah, could you stick around and share that with somebody, and we'll make sure we get that information, because that's what we're looking for. We want to find who we can be aiding to help our neighbors. Mutual aid. It's such a wonderful concept, helping the kids on the buses, getting food. Somebody was saying about the laundries, Carol, you were saying something about they might need help washing clothes, they may not have access to a laundry. They don't want to go out. So that's a number one priority. And then showing up. So let's sing our song again about that kind of showing up again. And then Carol, and then Charlotte's going to share something about Mary. Yes.
I just want to add that I do have a list of requested foods for each of those populations.
Okay.
So if anybody wants that list, I have it.
Okay. Let's collate all this stuff and get the information out. Thank you. Okay, you remember the song? It wasn't too long ago, was it? Okay. So, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. The revolution has come. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. When we show up, we've already won. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. The revolution has come. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. When we show up, we've already won. One more time. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. The revolution has come. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. When we show up, we've already won.
This is something we found on the UUA website, connected with the Side for Love. It is written by Reverend Ali K.C. Bell. spirit of love and justice, because we know these two must be held together if we are to get where we are going. Be with us now in a time when so much is changing, unimaginable, horrific, multiplying by the day. Give us the strength not to turn our heads, but to lift our voices, our bodies, our very selves, to keep bending the moral arc toward thriving, toward equity, toward care for all. Help us examine and act on what we are learning, not only about the world, but about ourselves, about how we shape, echo, and amplify the noise of division. Turn our voices, turn our habits, turn our silence until what once divided us becomes a song of resistance. Settle us out of our minds and into our hearts so we may release whatever keeps us disconnected from one another. We cry out, "How long?" And we answer back, "Now," and in the past, and into the future, because justice does not take a break from tyranny. Fascism cannot change the face of compassion. Equity will not surrender to the false comfort of the inequitable. Let us remember that hope has feathers, that it takes wing, not because it is naive, but because it is present, active, alive. And let us rest not in complacency, but in truth. We are survivors, we are thrivers, and we will not stop until our work is done.
Let's all sing together. We'll put the words up on the screen. One more step. A rousing song that says, "Show up." One more step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song. Thank you, everybody.
As Helen extinguishes the chalice, please say the words in the laminated order of service. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Having been refreshed in body, mind, and spirit in our fellowship this day, let us go to our daily tasks with renewed Thank you all for joining us today here at our fellowship building and those of you on Zoom. People at the fellowship building are welcome to gather for coffee and conversation in the fellowship hall. The Reverend Phil will be there.